you guys, welcome back to another episode of Broadway Time at Carmine's. Today I'm joined by Ainsley Melham, who's currently playing Dwayne in Boop the Musical, which is right down the street. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode of Broadway Time at Carmine's. Hey you guys, today I am here with Ainsley Melham. We're here at Carmine's in Times Square for another episode of Broadway Time at Carmine's. Ainsley, how are you today?
I'm really well. I'm excited. I've never been here, so I'm going to enjoy lunch with you for the first time here today.
I'm so excited. It's your first time at Carmine's. I can't believe it.
I know.
It's right down the street from your current home at the Broadhurst.
Right. I walk past it every day alongside Sardi's as well, all of these institutions. And so many firsts for me because I'm still relatively new to the city. Yeah.
Right. Well, speaking of, you're not from here. Talk to me about growing up in Australia. When did you realize that theater was your love and it's what you wanted to do?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a country town in Australia in a place called Bathurst, which is about 3 hours outside of Sydney. So a very small town. I attended a little dance school there. The only guy, in my time at the dance school, amongst lovely ladies. But I guess I grew up dancing. I was dancing from when I was 3 or 4 years old, so it's always been a part of my life. And I didn't really, even though I loved it and had a great passion for it, I didn't really know what the path was into a career until it was probably very late on in my schooling, year 11 or 12, or at the end of my high schooling, when a drama teacher said to me, you're really great at this, and if you want to pursue it, these are the paths you can take.
Right.
And so it really probably wasn't until then that I realized that this could be a career. And so the path from a little country town in Australia to New York City is pretty mind-blowing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did Broadway come about for you? You made your Broadway debut in Aladdin. How did that happen?
Yeah. So I was playing Aladdin on the Australian tour. All around Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and then we went over to Perth, and that was the end of the Australian part of the tour. And so I was leaving the company, and Disney said, congrats, we love working with you. Do you maybe want to come to New York and play the role here? And so they provided me my opportunity to come here to New York, and that sort of started the process of all the paperwork, the green card, all of that, because that's such a huge obstacle for I guess anybody outside of the country trying to come in is getting the legalities sorted before even the opportunity of booking a show.
Right.
So.
And what was that like, experiencing New York for the first time? Of course, everybody knows that Broadway is here. What was that like, being able to come here and be on Broadway?
Yeah. Well, Broadway is something we look at from back home, and obviously we're following it on social media. We're getting so much news from it. But to then be dropped in the middle of it, both as a tourist, somebody being here for the first time, but also as somebody who was going to live and work here, was pretty mind-blowing. To have that experience, that thrill and excitement of being in this new city, this like joyous, vibrant, gritty, grimy city.
Yeah.
And then walk to work every day was pretty thrilling. And it sort of didn't hit me until I took my first bow, on that first show at Aladdin, that we're actually doing it here on Broadway.
Well, I'm going to out myself. I've already seen Boop twice.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it just opened early this month, but it is such a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what it's been like being in Boop. We talked, obviously, in the rehearsal room, then on opening, but now that you guys are finally open and settled, what has it been like being in the world of Boop the Musical?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's so much fun. You can't not have fun coming to the theater every day and being on that stage and performing that material. Standing alongside Jasmine, Amy Rodgers, and Faith Prince, and these incredible performers, and being able to bring this joyous and cartoonish story to life is really thrilling. And then at the end of each show, to have everybody on their feet and smiling and singing along to the lyrics and the bouncing ball at the back of the stage there. And then they leave and we see them at stage door and they said, we had so much fun. We just spent 2.5 hours smiling and singing. We've done our job.
Yeah.
To bring joy and a bit of happiness in a time that feels maybe a little bit dark. Yeah.
Absolutely. And playing Dwayne, What has that been like, originating a role that's something that many people dream of doing on Broadway? And what's cool about Boop is that it's not based on the actual Betty Boop shorts. They created the story around the shorts.
Yes.
So what has it been like, you know, making Dwayne your role, and you did it in Chicago and now on Broadway? What has that been like, originating this role?
Yeah, you're right. This show only takes inspiration from the icon that is Betty, and so everything else about the show is new. The plot, the music, the book, the choreography. And Dwayne doesn't even exist in the Fleischer Studios canon, so he's a completely new character. And for me, throughout my career, I've had the pleasure of recreating roles. Aladdin, Fiyero in Wicked, Pippin in Pippin, like these amazing roles, but always recreating them off a blueprint that already exists. So this time we got to create the blueprint. And I poured all of my influences and loves into Dwayne. You know, all of those beautiful icons of the 30s and 40s, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, Sinatra, Dean Martin. All of these influences, I think you can see and hear in Dwayne, in the way he moves, in the way he sounds. And it's weird to think now that maybe, you know, if the show has a life beyond, that somebody will be using that as the blueprint to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also really exciting. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you've done some really cool shows like Now Boop, but also Wicked and Aladdin. These shows are tailored for young audiences.
Yeah.
What is it like being able to perform for these young audiences and have kids who maybe it's their first show, having them in the audience as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's back home in Australia, it's been really incredible because I started my career in this kids group called High Five, right? Which was like a pop group for kids. We filmed a TV series, we traveled around the world and performed on stage. And so I've had fans from that who were very young, maybe like 5 or 6 years old, who then came along and saw me in Aladdin, and then saw me in Pippin and Wicked, and like in all of these properties that are so great for people of all ages. So it's really, really sweet and touching when somebody comes along and says, "Oh, I remember you from High Five, and now I'm seeing you in Aladdin, or now I'm seeing you in Boop."
That's insane.
And people come to the stage door here and say, "Oh, I'm from, you know, the town next to yours," or, you know, I studied at the same school, or, you know, I know this person. So it's really touching that you know, we get people from back home coming to support. But that's what I love about this show, is that anybody can come and see it, and anybody can enjoy. People who know Betty Boop and perhaps who watched the shorts, you know, when they were very young, or people who just love her as an icon, young people who are now sort of being introduced to her in a bigger way, and might go back and start to watch some of those shorts and see where she started.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful show for people of all ages.
What have been some of the funniest kid reactions from the audience? I mean, I remember when I saw it right before opening, there was this kid next to me, and he was like, "I hope they kiss," and I was just like, "Well, they're gonna, you know." Kids have a mind of their own, and they're seeing this fun, bubbly, colorful show. What have been the best reactions?
I mean, the kiss always gets a reaction, whether it's, you know, whether it might be from a slightly older kids who you know, cheer, or slightly younger ones who are like, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
Pudgy always gets a great reaction.
Oh my God,
you know,
course.
our marionette, little puppy dog, just the most amazing, sweetest, cutest little thing. Scene stealer. I'm glad I don't have any scenes with Pudgy, because then I don't have to be upstage.
I'm just watching Pudgy and Phil. I'm just like, how is this happening? You know?
Yeah. But otherwise, you know, the kids love the color. There's so much color in this show, and a great example is our opener of Act 2, where we have those costumes that change from black and white to color, just, you know, by turning around. And I know that always gets a great reaction from the kids in the audience.
I know. I remember seeing that number for the first time, and I was like, it's so simple, but so incredible.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Faith, and she was like, boy, oh boy, is it hard to have to time those jump. Like, I couldn't imagine having to actually do that.
And they, you know, I had the privilege of sitting out and just observing, but Jerry drilled that number every day in the rehearsal room at the top of the day. It was the first thing that we did. And so Faith and Stephen and the ensemble would come in, and yeah, bless them, that was the first thing they had to do, speed through that number at the top of every day.
Gosh.
What a way to start rehearsals.
Yeah. But you get to do some of this Jerry Mitchell choreography.
Yeah.
What is it like doing that? I mean, we know his choreography from Hairspray. Legally, I mean, he's a legend in our community and in general. What is it like doing that choreography?
Yeah, I mean, to be in a room with him and to have him, cater choreography to you, and also to be part of the collaboration that births that choreography. Like when we did Why Look Around the Corner, he said, I know you have the style and I know you have the mind to put together steps, so go away and create something and come back and show me, and we can work on it together. So I was like, wow, I mean, that's thrilling, but also terrifying to go and go home and do your homework and put something together for Jerry Mitchell.
Right.
To then bring back into the room. But I think that speaks to his generous spirit and his willingness to collaborate. And so we did. I brought it back in, and he was like, take that out, keep this, let's move this over here. And yeah, so that's how some of that movement was formed. But as you say, a legend, and has worked with legends before him, and so he's passing down that knowledge to all of us.
What an absolutely incredible experience to be able to be a part of the making of Jerry Mitchell choreography.
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah, and I should shout out to our associates, Rochelle Rack and John Ruhr, because some of their movement and influence and steps is in the show as well. So they work as a tight unit to bring it to life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. What advice would you give to another performer that wants to dream of performing in general, but also being on Broadway? You started off in Australia, you made it all the way here. What advice would you give them?
I know, gosh. I mean, everybody's path is different, really. When I decided that I was going to do this, the lovely drama teacher who I mentioned before, she said, pick someone and let's see how they got to where they are. Mm-hmm. And we can sort of take their career and their path as inspiration. And so, of all people, we picked Hugh Jackman, fellow Aussie Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
And he started at the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts, and then made his stage debut in Oklahoma, and went on from there. Created these incredible Wolverine and X-Men, huge film career. So that's sort of how I modeled my career and my path. I applied for Whopper and got in there, and then obviously Aladdin was my big stage debut. So if I can have a fraction of the career he had, I'll be a very happy man. But I guess all of that to say, take some inspiration maybe from some of your idols, but also don't be afraid to lean into what makes you you. I think the further I go, the more I realize, especially when stepping into an audition room, the casting directors and the panel are looking for somebody who is personable and sincere and authentic. Somebody that they can get along with and work with and have a great and sincere conversation with, because you need that when you're collaborating and creating work. And what else? Aside from that, I think you always have to lean into the skills that scare you. Yeah. If you're an actor, singer, then don't be afraid to get into a dance class or vice versa. I think we can sometimes get in our head, and say, oh no, I'm not good at that. I'm going to stay away. But lean into it, because the industry is looking for people who are multi-skilled.
Absolutely. Yeah. So being in these long-time running shows, and then Boop as well, do you have any funny stage mishap stories? These are my favorite to hear. I actually did Michael Maliukel, who's a fellow Aladdin like you. Chatted yesterday. He told me one time the carpet went up and didn't come down. Oh. Which is crazy. I know. So what's something funny that's happened in Boop, Aladdin, Wicked?
I mean, Aladdin, I have plenty. One time I don't know what you call it when you have a football and back in Australia we call punt. When you punt a football.
Like kick it, right?
So, but with your hand, if you were to sort of do it and pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
I had the lamp, and I went to grab the lamp with my other hand, but instead punted it, and it went into the pit. And I just watched it disappear into the pit, and I was like, ah. and then had to turn and continue with the scene. Or at the end of Prince Ali, which opens the second act, we have this huge parade that sings all about the Prince Ali. He's coming, he's about to arrive, and they wheel me on this chair, on this beautiful big, what they call the sedan chair, and I climb down from this chair and step on my cape, huge cape, and slip over right center stage as everybody's pointing to me. So. Yeah, so many things. I don't think I've had anything, touch wood, it's probably going to happen today,
I hope not.
truly embarrassing happen in Boop yet, but that's the thrill of live theatre. You know, and I think the audience go wild for it in a way, because they think, oh, we saw something that nobody else will see, or that doesn't usually happen.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think Pippin was designed for mishaps. You start that show by jumping through a hoop.
Right.
And then there's pole climbing and knife throwing and guitar playing and backflipping. So there were always things. I remember, that's a great story. I remember climbing up the pole for the first time in tech. In the rehearsal room, we'd always done it in clothes, in our rehearsal clothes. But in the show, Pippin doesn't have a shirt on at that point.
Okay.
And he's been running around stage, and so he climbs up the pole, and I'm a bit sweaty, and then I let go of the pole, and there's a group of boys below to catch me. And I slip right through their hands and end up on the floor. And I just remember being on the floor and looking up and seeing everyone's faces, and I thought, this is not where I'm meant to be right now.
This is not what's supposed to happen right now. No, that's like a little terrifying. Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's the joy and the risk of live theatre.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. Your song on the show is about to release on Spotify. Tell the audiences about what's about to come out for them.
Yeah. So we have this song called She Knocks Me Out in the show. It's where Dwayne is sort of having a little bit of an existential crisis about falling in love with a cartoon.
Right.
And it was added in Chicago. It wasn't originally in the first draft of the show. But the creatives, we sort of mounted the show, and the creatives thought, oh, we need to hear from Dwayne in this moment. So David Foster wrote this song called She Knocks Me Out. And he wrote it on a weekend with Susan Birkenhead, our lyricists. And then we rehearsed it on Monday, teched it on Tuesday, and put it in the show Wednesday, Thursday. They quickly orchestrated it, and it was in. So I was in a recording studio in Australia, and David Foster was in his studio in LA.
Wow.
when we laid down the track. And it's about to be released tomorrow. So I'm really excited for fans of the show to see it. And even people who don't know the show, this can be their intro into some of the music, the beautiful music in the show.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Well, now we're going to play Broadway Time Quick Round.
Okay.
These are rapid-fire questions to know everything you love about Broadway.
Okay, gosh, all right.
All right. Favorite Broadway show?
The band's visit.
Dream role?
Oh, gosh. Cosmo Brown in Singing in the Rain.
Funniest moment on stage in Boop?
Funniest moment on stage? Gosh, this is meant to be quick fire. Funniest, Joe?
I know. I've tripped you up.
Let me see. Oh, I love when she arrives in Comic-Con for the first time in color, and is surrounded suddenly by all of these crazy characters.
Yeah, that's a good moment. Favorite vocal warm-up?
Sirens.
Yeah.
But with my you do it with your tongue out, and sometimes I do it walking along the street, and people are like, "What's happening with that young man?" Yeah.
You're right. Favorite song to perform in the show?
She Knocks Me Out.
Yeah. Who inspires you the most in the theater community?
Oh, I love Beth Level. Yeah.
Do you really?
Yes.
I love Beth Level too.
Yeah.
She's coming here tomorrow.
Oh my God.
I know, that's why I kind of choked up when you said that.
Maybe I'll stand outside and try and get a photo.
Absolutely. Dream Broadway co-star.
Can I say Beth Level again?
Yeah.
Or I can say Jane Krakowski. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Favorite place to relax in New York?
Central Park.
And lastly, best piece of advice you received?
Oh, a great friend of mine back in Australia said to me, just get up and say the words, which I know sounds a bit reductive, but I think at the end of the day, when the nerves and everything hit you, if you can just get up and say the words, then that's your job done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ainsley, for joining me here today at Carmine's. You guys can go catch them right down the street at Move the Musical at the Broadway Theater. But thank you guys so much. This has been another episode of Broadway Time at Carmine.
Thank you.